Hello, dear students. So, when we met last, we had discussed the early Renaissance, that is the first half of the 16th century, obviously, and the early Renaissance was designated what we call the era, the period was 1485 to 1560. Okay, and today I'm gonna discuss with you the Elizabethan Age, next half of the 16th century, right? In the previous PPT, I had already told you, or let me say, in the previous lecture, I had already told you that how we are dividing this 16th century. So today we will discuss the Elizabethan Age, which is also known as the flowering of Renaissance, and the historic period, ranges from 1558 to 1603. So, to begin with, we will first discuss the social background of the age, what happened, what was going on, how Renaissance especially flourished in this particular era. What happened? What social background was there? Okay, so the first thing is, it was an era of peace, prosperity. There was calmness, everything was okay. As we studied in the previous half of the century, in the first half, there was a lot of religious turmoil, But in this particular era, over here, Renaissance flourished as it was able to overcome these religious turmoils. Okay, so let's see what happened. The first and the most important thing we have to remember, that this particular age is known as the golden age of literature. The age of Queen Elizabeth, comprising the later half of the 16th century, is the golden age in the history of English people. It was an age in which the mind of people was set free from the trammels of medievalism. Freedom कहाँ से मिला? ठीक है, number one, freedom from medievalism. Freedom from the fear of religious persecutions, from fear of poverty and starvation, and from the fear of foreign invasion. So it was an era where there was peace, whether we talk of social conditions, whether we talk of political conditions, or we talk of religious situation. Okay, so everything was at peace during this particular age. Okay, that is why I am saying it is called as the golden age of literature in the history of English literature. Next, men were now free to devote themselves to art and literature. So, जब हम flowering of Renaissance की बात करते हैं, always remember, the whole focus remains on art. The whole focus remains on literature. After all, Renaissance is something which relates to both these things. Okay, so keep that particular thing in your mind. It was also an era of great adventure, travel. ये चीज़ हम पिछले हाफ में भी डिस्कस कर चुके हैं, but it applies here also. Adventure, travel, and discovery, which fired the imagination of people, and it impelled them to act, to do some or the other kind of creative activity. Okay, because people, when they were mentally at peace, there was no upheaval in the society which was going on, so people could invest themselves into doing good things, imaginative things, creative things. So it is therefore, for this reason, because art and literature flourished, the creative zest of the people flourished. It is because the golden age of literature, an age in which the Renaissance, which was earlier, it was temporarily arrested by the religious quarrels of the previous era, could come to full flowering. So, what I'm trying to tell you is that because of the peace that was there, socially, politically, and in the religious context, because of that, there was people spent their time in learning art and literature. There were discoveries, there was adventure, there was travels, and hence that helped in the flowering of the Renaissance. That is the era of peace. Next is the religious compromise. The young queen adopted the policy of religious toleration. Full religious freedom was granted to the people. She favored public worship, okay, of the Anglo Catholic type, and the English Bible was adopted. She employed in government service both. There were Catholics, and I hope you remember who were the other kind of Christian people, Protestants, provided they were loyal. So, what was important? That she was giving government service to both of them, but they were supposed to be loyal to the queen. That was more important. Loyalty was the most important thing. So, what happened after that? Both the extreme Catholics and the Puritans were kept in check. The result of this wise policy was that religious peace prevailed. Okay, religious peace. Religious peace means it comes from here. Religious compromises, religious peace. That is how, wisely Queen was able to deal with it. The result of this wise policy was religious peace prevailed in England, and she was saved from those religious wars which tore France and Germany into pieces at that time. It was Elizabeth who made the Anglican Church a reality. So, the Anglican Church became a reality because of Queen Elizabeth. Anglicanism is a kind of compromise between Catholicism and Protestantism. Now, see, I had told you that there were Protestants who believed we do not need the clergy, not the church, but we do not need the clergy to have a communion with God. Catholics who were staunch believer in the power of the clergy and the church. They needed the church, they needed the clergy to have a relationship with or to have a communion with God. Right? So, there came a compromise, and that came with the Anglican Church, and hence came the Anglicanism. And what was that? It was a compromise between these two. You have to remember this. Anglicanism was the compromise between Catholicism and Protestantism. It may be called Anglo-Catholicism. Anglo-Catholicism. Okay. This church was now accepted by both the Protestants as well as by the Catholics. So, this was your religious compromise, or how religious peace came in. Next, you have what we call the social and political peace. Okay. Elizabeth's wise policy of moderation resulted in political as well as social peace. Normal social life again became possible. The poor and the unemployed people were also taken care of. So that is how there was political as well as social peace. Basically, what happened? You can say that there was equality. That is what brought about this peace. Then the popularity of the queen. Okay, so how was she popular? It was through her wise policies. Her wise policies made her popular, both at home and abroad, that the queen endeared herself to all her people. Endeared, she became dear to everybody. And she fully deserved the adoration that was freely lavished upon her. She was a true child of Renaissance. She was a fine young woman, cultured and refined, well vexed in humanistic living learning, with a dignified presence, a lofty spirit, and a ready wit. She was a good orator too, one who could easily move the people with their hearts. So she was very, very popular because of her wise policies. Then there was upsurge of patriotism. There was an upsurge of patriotism such as had never been witnessed before. ऐसा पहले कभी नहीं हुआ. In the centuries we have read, there was one time or the other, there was some kind, religious, social, political, one kind of the other turmoil was always there. Religious was most of the time it was there. But here, everything was going well, everything was peaceful. So we witnessed what? Patriotism. Everything, even religion, combined to stimulate and reinforce this patriotism. Elizabethan love of letters had its beginning in patriotic pride. Next, we have rise of England as a naval power. That is imperialism. Not only in the field of literature, but in every field, patriotism impelled England to claim a preeminent place. England did not play any part in the first great act of the drama of discovery of the New World, but now she decided to catch up with her rivals and, if possible, to outdistance them. The discovery of the New World had altered the geographical position of England. The great East India Company was founded in the year 1599, and here the seeds of British imperialism were sown. Okay, this is what we mean by the rise of England as a naval power and the rise of imperialism. Next is the prosperity, the zest for life. As a result of the activity of her sailors, honest trade and piracy, enormous wealth poured into the country in the form of gold and silver, as well as silk, spices, wines, and all manner of luxuries. Thus was ushered in an era of prosperity and splendid living. So, because trade was taking place, so money was pouring in the country. Freed from religious fears and economic anxieties, they gave themselves up to the enjoyment of life. Merry England now became a reality for the first time. This is what I mean, merry. Merry means a happy England. Okay. So, this was reality for the first time. A great stimulus was thus given to the development of drama. The Queen had her children of the royal chapel and her troupe of professional actors and her nobles too. had their own troops of performers, wandering troops of actors, gave performances all over the country. The first playhouse, which was called the first playhouse, and the name of the first playhouse was the theatre. It was founded in the year 1576, and many others were constructed soon after. The popularity of the mask is a form of drama, where people wear a mask and they perform on the stage. That is what is a mask. A gorgeous show marked with its pageantry, music, and dance bears witness to the common love for color and spectacle. The Elizabethan zest for life found expression in a host of lyrics. The people were happy and they sang merrily. England was, this is this statement, you will generally come across when you either prepare for your net or otherwise also, that England became, जो लोग पोइट्री पे भी काम कर रहे हैं, even they would have read it somewhere, England was transformed into a nest of singing birds. This has often been talked of England at that time. Okay, so it was known as the nest of singing birds. So that is your prosperity test, zest for life, not test, zest for life. Next is craze for foreign trade and fashions. Italy was the home of Renaissance. We all know that. It was the brilliant center of art and literature. And journey to Italy was a craze with the Elizabethans. So people, basically what they did, they traveled to Italy. All liked to visit Italy and stay there for some time. Thus were imported into the country not only the books of Italy but also the morals of Italy. Satires at the Italian age gentlemen are frequent in Elizabethan literature. When we'll read about essays and we'll read about satires, then you'll get to know that the influence of this country is always found there. And most importantly, remember this, that Renaissance had its origin here. Okay, and the influence is very, very much obvious. Next was the age of great thought and great action. So, thus, the reign of Queen Elizabeth is a glorious reign. It is like sunrise after a long period of darkness. It is an age of great thought and great action, an age which appeals to the eye, it appeals to your imagination, and it also appeals to your intellect. It is a great age of intellectual and spiritual liberty, of economic content, and political and social peace and stability. In short, it is one of those great periods in the history of mankind when great art and literature flourished and came to flower. So basically, everything was flourishing, and all these factors, they combined together. The peace that was there, the stability that came, the trade and money that was coming in, the rise of drama that took place here, and basically the main thing was that people were, they were happy, they were contented, they were satisfied. Now, let us talk of the backwardness of the age. The age was an age of great diversity. वो हमने देख लिया. आर्ट की बात करें, लिटरेचर की बात करें, ट्रेवल की बात करें, नेवल पावर की बात करें, इम्पीरियलिज्म की बात करें. It was an age of wisdom, the age of foolishness, the age of light, darkness, the age of reason, and of the age of hope as well as of despair. The condition of life was fast changing, but much barbarity and backwardness of the Middle Ages still persisted. It was an age of disorder, violence, bloodshed, and tavern brawls. Tavern, where people drink, and brawls, they drink and they quarrel. So brawls are the quarrels. Now it would have not been possible, that everything was going like this. Something has to go like this. Upheavals are there. So some backwardness, some what should we say, the negative effects, the negative things, they obviously they existed. Okay. Then there was ignorance as well as superstition. It was an age of ignorance and superstition. There was, despite the advancement of science and learning, the majority of the people still believed in what we called witchcraft. और ये आपको यहाँ के इस टाइम के प्लेज पोइट्रीज में भी मिलेगा आपको. Witchcraft and what we call the charms, and we call omens, good omens, bad omens. I hope you know about omens if you have read Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist. एंड हमारे यहाँ तो ओमेंस भरे पड़े हैं ना, बिल्ली ने रास्ता काट दिया, तो दैट्स अ बैड ओमेन. सुपरस्टिशियस बिलीफ है वो तो, बट ओमेंस आर, दे आर लाइक, बिल्ली ने रास्ता काट दिया इज़ नॉट एन ओमन, बट हम उसको बुरा मानते हैं. सो ओमेंस, दे आर बैड ओमेंस एंड देयर आर गुड ओमेंस. बट जो हमारा बिल्ली काटना है, दैट इज सुपरस्टिशन. ओके, बट हेयर इट इज समथिंग डिफरेंट. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ आई हैव टू गिव यू, he says over in this particular book that when you see a set of two butterflies, they cross you, it means it is a good omen, something good is about to happen to you. तो वो omens होते हैं. So all these things, they existed at that time. Frequent appearance of the supernatural in the works of Shakespeare is a concession to the popular faith. Medical science was still rudimentary, that is, it was growing, and all sorts of fantastic cures were prescribed. Lunatics, जो mad people होते हैं, were still confined within their solitary cells and whipped for their own cure. It is in this way that Malvolio is treated in the 12th night. I wonder आप लोगों ने पढ़ना शुरू किया है कि नहीं 12th night, or it was in our course, I don't know if it is in your course or not, So Malvolio is known to be a lunatic and is one of the characters in the 12th night. Now what I want to tell you over here, कि ये जो हम social background पढ़ रहे हैं ना, you will find all these the prevalence of all these events in the works of the writers to come. Some great writers like Shakespeare, Bacon, essays जो हैं, सर्रे की बात, वाइट की बात हमने करी है. So in their works you will find an impact of the society. Okay, remember that. We should underline because it is a book, 12th night. So keep that in mind. Now let us conclude. Despite this coarseness, violence, ignorance, brutality, it was an age in which men lived intensely, they thought intensely, and they wrote intensely. They were stirring times, moving times, when passions were strong and speculation was strife, when everything conspired to bring out the best that was in men. In short, it was a glorious age in which men of genius like Shakespeare, Spencer, Marlowe, Bacon could make their mark. That is why this is known as the glorious age, or you can say the golden age of literature. So now whatever background we have read over here, on the basis of this background we will be studying the various writers of this particular age. But before discussing the writers, we would first discuss the literary background. So, for this part, I hope you will be able to understand the social background and connect it with your works that we will study. So, for now, thank you so much. We continue in the next lecture.